It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Property Podcast. It's episode 147. Happy New Year. Are you ready to make this a good one? I hope so. This is the perfect episode for you. But before we get to that, Rob, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I think it's going to be a good one. I've got a good feeling.
I could sing loads of songs come up. I've got a feeling, but I'm not going to go there. So
no, let's not start the year on that note.
No, God, we've already lost another 10% of listenership.
Yeah, let's start instead. Instead of singing, let's start by talking about goals. That's what we're doing today. We're talking about how to smash your 2016 goals. We've done goal setting before. We talked about it. It comes up a lot because it's really important, but we're going to be talking about specific things that you can do with your goal setting to make sure that you have a really great year. These are things that we've been doing recently that have really worked. And so we're going to tell you about them so you can see if it works for you too, as well as a resource that's going to really help you with that. And a very interesting news story as well. So we're not starting small with this one. It should be a really good episode.
Yeah, it's a really, really timely episode, obviously. The resources Rob mentioned is going to be excellent. I'm sure many of you will really like it. It's something unique. It's something we've built for you. So I'm sure you'll enjoy that. But this is all a prelude, Rob, to a 3-part series we've got coming up, which we'll talk about more at the end of the episode. But you need to set goals, but with goals you need a strategy. And with strategy, Rob, you could also do with a book on strategy.
Yes, very good. So like Rob said, we are talking about goals this week. We're talking about strategy for the next few weeks. And this does link very nicely into a book that I've got coming out. It's coming out on the 28th of January, and it's called The Complete Guide to Property Investment. So there's a big claim. Complete covers means it's meant to cover just about everything, and I think it does. It's about 66,000 words. It's nearly killed me, but it's coming out on the 28th of January. And although it's not out just yet, what you can do from today is reserve your copy. So what that means is you can go to propertygeek.net/book. When you get there, you don't have to pay anything now, don't have to pay anything until the day it comes out. But by reserving a copy, it means that you get some cool extra stuff. So straight away, I'll send you some extracts to keep you going. The extracts are pretty meaty in themselves. And you'll also get some extra cool stuff over the next few weeks. By registering, you'll get an invitation to an exclusive online book discussion that I'm going to be hosting in March. You'll get some chapter-by-chapter audio notes that I was actually putting together just yesterday, and some extra bits as well that I'm not letting on yet, but I'm going to basically be throwing some extra bonuses your way over the next few weeks. I thought it would make it a bit more fun. Rather than just going, oh, the book's out today, go get it. I thought it would be a bit more interesting to have a few weeks where you can sort of say now, yep, I'm in, I'll be buying it. And then over the next few weeks, I'll throw some extra interesting things your way. So basically, if you're thinking about buying it anyway, and you're pretty sure that you're going to, you'd be mad not to go and say, yep, I'm going to buy it now, because you're going to get a load of extra stuff at no extra cost. All you need to do is go to propertygeek.net/book, enter your email address, and that is it. This is all presupposing, of course, that I do actually manage to get it completely finished and it doesn't kill me in the meantime. But I'm feeling quietly confident. It kept me very busy over Christmas, and I think it's pretty much there.
Well, I've read large chunks of it, Rob. Finally got my free copy. It didn't take too long, and and I must admit it's brilliant, and I think everyone will get a lot out of it. However, do not worry. If you think, oh no, this goals episode and the next 3 weeks are all going to be just hints about the book and why the book's so great. The book is great, but actually, as you would expect if you've been following this for a while, there's going to be loads and loads of value. Everything today is stuff you can do, take action from, and the next 3 weeks as well, there's loads of actionable points, loads of really good tips, stuff that we do all the time, each week, month, quarter, that you can replicate yourself. So yes, the book's awesome and all those giveaways are awesome, but the podcast will be awesome alongside it. So it's a double win. Yeah,
it is. And it's all extremely timely. I mean, January is the kind of time to talk about goals anyway, and goals lead you on to strategy. But I think it's never been more important to make sure that you've got your strategy locked down, in part because of some of the changes that were announced last year. 2015, not a vintage year for property investors in terms of what the government announced that they had in store for us. As a result of some of that, people are having to tweak their strategy, tweak their goals. So it's never been more important to have all this locked down and make sure that you've got everything properly thought through. So that's why we're going to be talking about that for the next few weeks. I'm really excited about it. This is the kind of thing that we love, as you can probably tell. But I mentioned some of the changes that happened last year, and Rob, it all rumbles on. Some new things have been coming out regarding the big announcement that we had last year.
Yeah, it seems George Osborne's strategy for the new tax changes wasn't that well thought out. Well, it might have been, but the person who put it together and suggested it was actually a student who'd only just graduated with a geography degree. Not the type of person I'd want to be consulting on anything property-wise. The brilliant article in TPP147, another forum. Mark Alexander, who runs that, very good guy, and he really gets behind worthy causes. And he's put together a really interesting read on this subject, on the person who put this paper together, and really points out some major flaws in the paper that when you read it, it's pretty damning, actually. It's actually shocking, some of the stuff that's got through, and I can't believe it can all be from this guy. So, you have to take a balanced view when you read this. I can't believe that all of the government's decisions were based on this one article, but it does seem to be led by a lot of it. So it's well worth a read. We'll link to it in the show notes, of course, which this week you can find at thepropertyhub.net/2016 goals. You'll want to make a note of that one because we have lots of links and resources for you, as you would expect.
Yes, lots of links coming up. So let's get into it. How to smash your 2016 goals. Over the last couple of weeks, we've held planning sessions for both of the businesses that we run together, the Property Hub, including the podcast, the forum, the magazine and everything else, and Yellow Lettings. And as part of those planning sessions, we were setting goals. So we've been refining this approach over the last few years, and it got us thinking about some of the things that we do that make it far more likely that we'll achieve our goals. So the idea is that anyone can come up with a goal, right? And there are good goals and there are not so good goals. Even if you've got a good goal, a smart goal, a lot of people still pretty much leave it up to chance as to whether they make that goal happen or not. So it can feel good to go to sort of come up with this lofty goal and go, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. If you don't have the right system in place to make sure that it happens, then it really is like no better than chance. And there's no point setting the goal in the first place if you're not serious about achieving it. So we've developed a kind of a methodology that means when we set a goal, it pretty much is going to happen. And so some of the ingredients of that are what we're going to talk about today, to make sure that you not only set an appropriate goal for 2016, but to make sure that when the next December rolls around, you can look back and say, yep, I said I was going to do that and I did it. So that is what we're talking about today. We've got lots of different steps to go through as part of this process. So Rob, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so let's get going. And let's start with listing that goal. Makes sense, right? And it does. But go long term. With the first goals you set your long-term goals, but also make them meaningful. It's important. Setting long-term goals is important, but also have some meaning behind it. If you say, I want to be a millionaire through property investment, okay, that is a goal, but what's that mean to you? Why a millionaire? Why is that important? If you can't really come up with a good answer, then chances are the motivation you have for that goal will dwindle. So make sure your goal is meaningful to you. We've talked in length about this before on multiple goals episodes we've done and course. And again, we'll link to all of these things in the show notes. But by setting something meaningful, something that's important to you, the motivation for you then pursuing that goal and moving forward towards it is more likely to be sustained. That's the first thing. The next thing to do then is set SMART goals. Again, something we've talked about before. SMART, to remind you, is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So that's what SMART stands for. And you want your goals to be SMART. If, for example, being a millionaire through property is something that's meaningful to you, then you can say, I want to be a millionaire through property. I'm going to use professional buy-to-lets and I'm going to do it in 10 years' time. That is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, depending on your starting point. Realistic, yeah, again, depending on where you're at, but for many, because of the time frame, it probably is possible. And timed, you put a time on it. It's good for working out a monetary figure to aim for a long term if you make it meaningful. Dream costing is something we've talked about a lot. Again, we'll link to dream costing information in the show notes. Remember, that's the propertyhub.net/2016 goals. But if you put a financial figure on what your goals will cost you in the future, then it's a lot easier to work towards them. Now, a word of warning, a common trend I've seen by working with probably thousands of people on their strategy at R&P Property, we always start with their goals, and we won't let anybody come in to see us until they've worked on their goals. So we'll probably send them episodes like this to get them started. But one of the things people tend to do is they overestimate what they can do in the short term and underestimate what they can do in the long term. You know, if you're not experienced in property, let's flip it to something around this time of year, most people focus on like health and fitness. So it's the type of thing people go in, right, I want to lose a stone in 2 weeks. And then I want to lose 3 stone by the end of the year, saying that you've got the capacity to lose that amount. The short term is unrealistic. The longer term, as long as it's healthy to do so, 3 stone over 12 months, while it's a big goal, it's probably more realistic than the 1 week, the short term goal. Sounds like, oh, well, I won't do that. But I see it time and time again. People really overestimate what they can do in the short term. But just important to note is that people underestimate the long term. So when you're putting your long term goals, make sure you push yourself. I've been looking back at some of my long term goals recently, and now I'm halfway through the time period I've set. They just don't seem big enough. I'm gonna hit them, and I look back and think I should have pushed them harder. And I know this already. So if you don't, make sure you're aware of it when setting your goals. But again, another podcast to listen to is an episode we did on thinking big, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Make sure you listen to that when you're setting your goals, because thinking big is really important when you're setting out your long-term goals. Lots of resources today, Rob.
Yeah, a hell of a lot. And that last point you made about short term and long term, that's something we see all the time at the summits as well. Very common indeed. Now, the next step is to review where you are now. And so Rob mentioned when you're sort of trying to determine whether something is achievable, it depends on your starting point. So looking at where you are now is really important in terms of setting a goal which is sufficiently big and ambitious and perhaps bigger than you think you can do, but also not just flat out impossible. Honestly assess where you are now in terms of a few different things. So in terms of your finances, the money you can put in, the time that you've got to dedicate. So have you got 1 hour a week or 40 hours a week or 100 hours a week to dedicate to this? Big difference depending on your answer. Also your experience level. If you're just starting out, that means there's going to be, it's going to take longer to achieve certain things and maybe cost you more money to achieve certain things than if you've got more experience. And also your skills. If you possess certain skills, it's going to make things easier for you in certain ways. This will help you if you review these 4 things, like take stock in terms of finances, time, experience, and skills. Then it'll help you not only make sure that you set an appropriate goal, but also help you identify any areas where you want to improve and build that improvement into your plan. So, for example, if there are certain things that you think it would be beneficial to learn because you fall short in certain areas at the moment, then you can build into your plan certain types of education that you might want to undertake. Alternatively, you could find that you fall short in terms of time, and so you might put into your plan rearranging your work somehow to free up more time or more meaningful blocks of time. So this is really where the goal starts morphing into strategy. So the goal always has to come first. And once you've got that, you can then develop a strategy to get you to that goal. That's what we start really digging into in this next step. But this step here is a useful preliminary to that, to make sure that when you start developing that strategy, it's well suited to your abilities and any constraints that you've got. So you've got the end point with the goal. You've got the starting point. You've taken stock of where you are now. So then what you need is a strategy to get you from here to there.
You do indeed. A goal is massively important to set, or setting goals in general. But if you don't set a strategy, then how are you going to get there? It's like the map. You know, you can have a destination, but if you haven't got the roadmap to get there, then you could get lost and spend a lot more time than you should actually achieving those goals. So a strategy is really, really important. And of course, we've got the podcasts over the next 3 weeks coming up on that. More on that at the end of the show. But the thing to understand is there are so many different strategies when it comes to property. yours will be different to the next person's. And even if you're adopting a similar strategy, the approach and the aggressiveness or not, as the case may be, towards that strategy will be different as well. Be careful, if someone says, oh, you should do it this way without understanding your goals and what you want to achieve, then, be careful. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean it's right for you. For example, if your goal is to quit your job in 2 years, which is pretty aggressive through property, then it's unlikely to happen, through normal buy-to-lets. Of course, unless you're investing a lot of capital to begin with. Now, Rob covers that and many other things like that in the book. But as a lesson, you've got to be careful of what you want to achieve. Is it realistic? Are the strategies that you want to do, are they right? For example, 2 years through buy-to-let, it might be possible for you, but it might mean taking on a lot of risk and being very aggressive. But if you're a cautious person by nature, while on paper it may seem like a good thing to do, will the stress of those 2 years be right for you? Are you going to have a breakdown in the middle of it? If you are a very gung-ho person, you don't mind the potential of possibly losing some capital, but it's worth it for the risk and the opportunity to retire in 2 years, then that's great. But you've got to understand you as a person. And the strategy is super important. So much more on that in the coming weeks and, of course, in Rob's book. But don't overplan. Break it into annual plans, but don't work out every last detail because, believe us, they change. We've set a lot of plans, personally and professionally, and things do change, good and bad, and you'll have to tweak things as you go. But if you go big and then go long-term in the annual, that's normally enough to begin with. You can start breaking it down. We'll explain that in a minute. But don't think, right, okay, I'm going to break it down from the year all the way down to hour by hour. Because, let's face it, things happen in life. And either good or bad, it will move the agenda either a bit further forward than you expected or a bit slower. That's forming a strategy. As I say, we'll talk about it more in coming weeks. But Rob, we can start to break it down, as I said. What's the best way of going about it?
Yeah, once you've got that strategy, you know what you're doing. You don't know down to the minute what you're going to be doing, but you've got a pretty good idea. Then you can start really breaking it down. So we'll talk about what we do. We do in business, and it kind of works for property and anything else as well. The place to start is big. Start with a big, hairy, audacious goal. As I can't remember who coined that, but it's something that crops up in a few different places, and it just means basically start with something sufficiently big and ambitious and motivational that spans multiple years. This isn't something you can just knock out in a few weeks. It's going to take you years to achieve this, and when you do, it's going to be really seriously meaningful. From there, you can then list out your annual goals. So a year is a good amount of time as a kind of a step towards that end goal. So it's enough time for you to make meaningful progress without being too long where things can start falling by the wayside. So list out your annual goals, and you might want to add in things other than property. So this exercise, as I've said, doesn't just work for property or for business, but for anything. So you might want to add in goals like to do with your health, to do with your family, or anything else. From there, from the annual goals, what we do for our businesses is set 3 to 5 quarterly goals. And we actually do this on a Trello board. That will not surprise you if you're a long-time listener. And then from those quarterly goals, we break them down into the sub-steps that need to be achieved to make that happen. So you take the annual goal, you break it down into 3 to 5 quarterly goals, and then each of those quarterly goals gets broken down into steps. So, okay, if I'm going to hit this a quarterly goal, then I need to achieve steps A, B, C, D, E. And then those sub-steps become your monthly or your weekly tasks. Now, the brilliant thing is that what you've done effectively by going through this exercise is you've taken something quite daunting and broken it down into pretty simple steps. So from something really, really ambitious and long-term, you set an annual goal. To get to the annual goal, you're not putting yourself in a position where you get to October and you haven't quite started yet, because you've set quarterly goals, and from those come your monthly and your weekly tasks. So essentially, you end up in a position where all you need to do is complete the tasks that you've set yourself for each week, and you'll hit your goal automatically. You really can't go too far wrong. So this idea, I think, is really, really important. It's taking your big kind of thinking big which is really important, but breaking it down to the level of here's what I need to do each day, because it's that incremental day by day progress that's going to get you ultimately to where you want to be. It's really important to think big and have an audacious goal, but there's no point doing that once and then just going on as you were. The key is to perform the actions that need to be taken every day that are going to get you there. So that's what this process is all about. And when you do so, I think you'll realize what Rob was talking about earlier with regard to being ambitious and how people underestimate what can be done in a year. But we found with our businesses that it's amazing how much you can get done just in a few months if you just do a little bit every day. And importantly, that if you're focused, so you only do the things that matter. If you only do the things that count and the things that move you forward, you don't need to spend that much time on them to make a really significant difference over the course of a few months to a year. So that process that I've just talked you through, it's a lot easier to understand if you actually see it visually. So what we've done is we've created a Trello board that we're going to share with you that gives you a template for doing exactly this. So it's going to be linked to in the show notes. All you need to do is go to the show notes at thepropertyhub.net/2016 goals, and you'll find a link to that Trello template. And if it sounds useful to you, you can just take that, modify it if you want, and plug your own goals into it and copy the same system that we use. So maybe you'll find that it works exactly. Maybe you'll find that you want to give it a tweak a bit to work for you. But I think it's always helpful to kind of start with a framework in mind. And if you haven't used Trello before, don't be daunted by it at all. It's incredibly easy to use and it's free. So there's really nothing stopping you from doing that. So get over to the show notes, grab that Trello board, and you'll see how to take that process that I've just talked about and really put it into action.
So you've got your plan, you're working towards it, all your goals are smart, you've got this, it's all going well, but 1 week you don't do as much as you should. A month goes by, you've fallen behind a bit. Why is it happening? Well, it could be because you haven't got support and accountability. Now, this is where Rob and I have an unfair advantage, because not only have we got each other, we've got our team, and we've both done progress journals in the Property Hub as well, which mean that we are accountable to what we say we're going to do. Daily, weekly, publicly, we say what we're up to, what we're doing. And if we say, we're going to, launch a book, and the book doesn't happen, then people will notice. No pressure, Rob. So we are very fortunate in that respect. Now, I appreciate that not everybody has that opportunity. And when I started out in property and in business, I used to get friends or people I trusted to be my buddy, if you like, to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do this week, or this is what I'm going to do this month. They had no impact on them if I achieved it or not. It was just more of I was telling somebody I was going to do something and I'd look a bit silly if I didn't deliver on it. So that really helped for me. But you can really step this up another level, and that's the Property Hub Summits. If you are really focused, on making this happen for yourself this year, on 2016 is a big year for you, then if there are any places left, do get one for our February dates. Now, the reason I say that is before the year even kicked off, Saturday, gone, sold out. We've got 2 dates in February, the Saturday and the Sunday, and the Saturday is sold out. And the Sunday, places have gone already. Both will be a sellout before the date. That's a guarantee. It's just how soon to that date it will happen. So go to thepropertyhub.net/summit and join a group of just 15 other people. We will work on your strategy with you in person, Rob and I, and the group will as well, and you will walk away with a clear, defined strategy. But not only will you get that, you will also then have a group of people who will hold you accountable to, and you'll be able to create your own mastermind group with like-minded people from that day. Sounds brilliant? Well, we think it is, and the feedback we've got from every single one we've done has been awesome. I think you'll enjoy it too. And one of the things we do say is that if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back because we're that confident. So zero risk as well.
Yep, it's pretty simple. And one of the cool things that we do there as well is we do a 3-month follow-up session. And those are always really good because at the end of the day, we practice what we preach. We say, okay, well, put in writing your goals for the next quarter, and we'll hold you accountable to those. So we sort of set out the strategy and then do exactly what we just talked about. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to make that happen, then you need to convert that into daily action. So what are you going to do by the next time we meet in 3 months' time? Put that in writing, give it to us, and we will hold you accountable. And when we do that, we always find that people have achieved some pretty amazing things in such a short space of time. And, not everyone is in a situation where there's like, I'm going to go out and buy 5 properties in 3 months. In fact, it's normally not that. That's, again, overestimating the short term, underestimating the long term. But people do achieve great things, and they achieve far more than they would have done if they'd just been drifting along. And people always say, oh, I've just been basically doing nothing for the last couple of years, and then suddenly it's all clicked into gear. And it's not because of any kind of genius thing that we've come up with, but it's because you've said that you're going to do something, and you know that you're going to look a bit silly if you haven't done it. So it really is that simple. And that really is the conclusion from the whole thing, just going and doing it. And that's why this episode and the next few episodes really go together as a series, and you can't separate them all out, because the goal is just the start. It's taking that goal, building a strategy around that goal, and then breaking it down into what you're going to do today to make that happen.
That's really it. It's making it happen. Just go out and do it. That's really the last thing to say on this is, this might sound good. You might feel all pumped and motivated, and that's great. That's important. But if you don't take action, you've just wasted 30 minutes. So make sure you take action. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to book a summit place or even buy the book, although you probably should. The point is, being serious, is that you do something with this. Go and use the Trello template. That's free. All the information is free. At the very least, take advantage of the framework and the method that we've given you and go and set those goals. And then if you want to find support, find a buddy who will, support you along your way, or share your goals on a Property Hub. Everything we've said today, you can do for free. If you don't do it, that's the biggest cost. That's the biggest financial implication on yourself, because setting goals, I know we get pretty passionate, and it's only taken until now for me to go on a rant, but setting goals will change your life if you take it seriously. I can promise you that's true, because I've seen it for myself and I've seen it for others. Setting goals is a big, big winner in terms of improving your life. So make sure you take advantage of what we've given you today. Don't make this a wasted half an hour. Don't make it a rah-rah session. Take action. Do something now. Go and get the Trello board. Go and order the book. Whatever you want to do, just go and do it. Don't hold back. Take action and make steps to making 2016 an awesome year. I'll stop. Before I get overexcited, I'll stop at that. But make sure, if you do anything from this, take action, even if you do a bit of it.
That's a pretty solid rant to start off the year, Rob. I'm happy. I'm excited to see what other rants you've got in store for us. But yeah, obviously
they're all positive rants normally, though. Yeah. They're generally positive rants.
They are, absolutely. No, obviously 100% agree with all of it. So that is what you need to do to make it your best year yet. Although I think we missed a step. I think if there's something that you haven't done yet, this is a crucial ingredient to making this your best year yet, which is leaving us an iTunes review.
Oh, yeah, because none of this will happen for you. You will not achieve your goals unless you leave us an iTunes review. May not be true. Right, okay, but someone who certainly has an advantage when it comes to goals is Heyday. And Heyday says, Rob and Rob give away all sorts of useful information about property investment, all for free. I love listening to their podcast every week. Thank you, guys. Short but sweet, but thank you, Heyday. It is appreciated because it went along with a 5-star rating. If you'd like to leave us a review, you can go straight to thepropertyhub.net/iTunes, or go to the show notes this week, because let's face it, there are tons and tons and tons of resources and links in there. And that's thepropertyhub.net/2016 goals.
Yes, get over to the show notes. There's plenty of resources linked to from there, including the Trello board, including some of the courses and the episodes that we've talked about, all free, which will keep you plenty busy enough until next week when we kick off our 3-part series on setting a strategy, which I'm very, very excited about. Love this stuff. Also, before next week, there are 2 things that you can do. Firstly, if you want to go and reserve your copy of the book, very easy. Go to propertygeek.net/book. You'll get not only reminded about buying that on the day it comes out, but you'll get all the extra goodies that I'm sending your way over the next few weeks. And also, you can get yourself along to a meetup. We got so excited that we almost haven't mentioned that it's meetup night tonight. First Thursday of the month always is. January, when we've done meetups in January before, they've always been extremely well attended. Everyone very excited. Always love getting out and about to these. Again, completely free, a way to go and meet other people who will be able to help you with your property journey. So why not? If you haven't booked your place yet, get over to thepropertyhub.net/meetups and get yourself booked onto your nearest event.
Make sure you do. Rob, are you happy to commit to where you'll be appearing this evening?
Yes, I'm going to be in Sheffield this evening. So if you are getting along to Sheffield, I'm very excited about meeting you there. What about you, Rob?
I will be going not quite as far, and I'll be going to London South Bank. But you are the traveller, Rob. So if anybody's in London, you're going to the South Bank event, then I will see you there. Looking forward to it. Not been to that one before. And I will travel further afield next time.
So lots for you to be doing this week. Plenty to look forward to in the coming month and the coming year. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're as excited as we are about the year ahead. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. For show notes, all our past episodes, and to leave a review, go to thepropertyhub.net/podcast.